Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching Real Housewives of Beverly Hills, the episode from this week. I'm going to watch it, and I'm going to react to it. My name is Dr. Kirk Honda. I'm a therapist and a professor. Let's see if anything interesting comes out of my face.
Gave the implication that it was sexual. It really did. Like, it felt like that.
Look, I was naked, and I felt uncomfortable, period. But I didn't make it sexual.
I've been in a public bathroom going to pee, and someone walked in, and I didn't feel violated.
Okay, I don't think I've reacted to this yet. This has spanned a few episodes where Sutton, late at night, had Crystal's coat at the Tahoe Lodge house thing. And Sutton knocks on the door to Crystal's room, and Sutton and Crystal were having kind of a feud of some sort back then and still. So Sutton knocks on the door and says, "Hey, I've got your coat," waits a beat, and then opens the door. Looks inside, sees that Crystal is naked. Crystal, falls on the floor to shield herself from Sutton's eyes. Sutton puts the coat on the bed or something and says, "Oh, I don't know what's going on in here," making a joke. I don't think it was malicious or anything. Who knows? It's hard to know exactly what she saw or what she was exactly thinking anyway, so she closes the door. Then there was a lot of conversations about what Sutton did and how Crystal felt about it. So on one hand, Sutton should not have just opened the door. When you knock on a door, it is not an announcement, "I'm about to open the door." When you knock on the door, it is a question mark. Is it okay if I enter? That's what the knocking of especially if it's someone that you don't know that well. If it's your spouse or something, maybe. But I feel like people need to understand this. Now, Sutton may come from a family culture where people just barged in. And I find that there are different family cultures. Some people come from families where things were pretty private, and other families there was zero privacy. I came from a family where there was minimal privacy, but some privacy. In that there were I'm one of 4 kids, and there were dogs and cats, and my parents and cousins, and everyone's coming in and out. A pretty small house in Issaquah, Sammamish, Washington, and I don't remember any. And it's also kind of like, I don't know if it's a Japanese American thing as well, but people would just leave the door open when they're going to the bathroom. So in my family, things were just flung open. But as I've interacted with others, I've realized that, well, you should probably knock. Although I wonder if my wife actually would want me to knock and wait a little bit longer sometimes. But she she watches these videos and edits them, and so I'm guessing I'll get an answer to that question later on. I'm quite sure that she came from a family where there was more privacy, or at least that's what she wants. Anyway, point is, I'm the Sutton and my wife is the Crystal in this situation. So when you are with someone, generally speaking, unless you know otherwise, knocking is a question mark. Is it okay if I come? If you get no answer, then you don't open the door. Especially since for Sutton, this wasn't an emergency. She just had her coat. They were in a rental lodge. She could have just left the coat outside the door or on the couch or something. It wasn't an emergency. It was late at night too. It was like, I don't know, 2 a.m. or something, late at night. So on one hand, Sutton should not have opened the door. On the other hand, she did open the door and she saw Crystal naked. And Crystal is not terribly upset about it, but kind of upset about it. I think it was colored by the fact that Crystal and Sutton were having a feud. I think if Crystal's friend were to do that, Crystal would have felt less violated. And then there was a lot of triangulation where each of them were going to other people, talking behind their backs and amping up the issue, which is normal to do. Crystal is entitled to confide in a friend and be like, "She just barged in my room. I was naked. I didn't even hear her knocking on the door. Who does that? Just because I had a coat?" And then she made a joke about, I didn't see any, I don't know what's happening, making kind of a sexualized joke. Like, I don't appreciate that. And I don't know if Crystal has some sexual shame. A lot of people do in our culture. We have a sex negative culture. So I don't know if, what was going on with Crystal there. Crystal's completely entitled to be upset about it, by the way. But the triangulation wasn't helping, meaning they were drawing in other people instead of just going right to the source. I think this is further straining their relationship. So how do you repair it? Well, they tried to repair it last episode, but they didn't really. And what, if I were to engineer a conversation between the two of them, I would validate both of them. Sutton, you're totally valid in that you were trying to return the coat and you didn't think that by opening the door, it would be a problem. You weren't trying to violate Crystal's privacy. You didn't mean to. It was a complete accident. Sutton, for future reference, particularly with Crystal, maybe with others, knocking is a question mark, not an announcement. But Sutton, I get it. It wasn't mean. You weren't trying to hurt anyone's feelings. Crystal, it makes total sense that you felt violated. It is a violation. You're in privacy of your room and someone just barges in your room. You didn't even hear them knock, or you heard them knock and you're like, oh crap, and you're trying to get your stuff together. It is a violation, and it hurt quite a bit. I don't think Sutton meant it to be that way. Sutton might have a different idea of what is polite in a situation like that, but it makes total sense that you felt violated. It makes total sense that you're upset, and perhaps Sutton can apologize for that.
I'm sure it wasn't fun for them either, okay? There are so many other words that Crystal could have used: embarrassed, awkward, even say rude that she walked in. But violated? If you're using that word when you don't have clothes on, it means something totally different.
Yeah, exactly. It is potentially a violation. I mean, it depends on the person that is, being walked in on, as they're naked in a room. For some people, it'd be like awkward or uncomfortable, but for others, it would absolutely be a violation. I mean, it's akin to, if not a sexual assault, to just barge into someone's room without making sure that they're okay with you entering the room is, it is a violation. And I think that Sutton should apologize. I don't think Sutton should, be terribly ashamed of herself. It was kind of a tragedy of errors, because most people, you think, because I think Crystal had just gone to her room and so she knocks on the door. I think a lot of these cast members are used to, especially when they're on camera, just kind of going into rooms and stuff. So I don't think that Sutton should feel terrible about herself, and this actually brings up a topic that I get into with some of my clients, where, for example, there's a couple and they have a situation where one person violates the other person. One person even sexually violates the other person, and they're in love and they're in a relationship. And so the conversation is interesting because for the victim, they want to use certain words like violate and other words that you could imagine. Whereas the quote unquote perpetrator doesn't want those kind of labels on them. They want to say, hey, that's too strong of a word, violate, or other kinds of words like that. But it's important that we don't associate violating behaviors with being a violator, if that makes any sense. For Sutton, she accidentally, and perhaps with some inconsideration or not really understanding polite behavior with people you don't know that well, she accidentally violated Crystal. Absolutely. And you can say, I am so, here's me this is what I often do. I just role play people. So I'm Sutton and I say, Crystal, you're right. I did violate you 100%. I should not have barged in the room. I don't know why I did that. I guess I just thought that everything would be okay, but it wasn't okay for me to do that under any circumstances. I made a joke because I was uncomfortable. I shouldn't have made that joke. You're completely in the right, because Crystal is completely in the right, other than triangulating other people, which we could debate. But the feeling that Crystal has is completely justified. But Sutton could say, I'm sorry, you're right, Crystal, I shouldn't have done that. I was wrong, I should have waited. And Sutton can still say, but I'm still a good person. I don't tend to violate other people, at least, and she can preserve her ego on a certain level. But people have a real hard time with that because we have this black and white thinking. You're either a violator or you're a good person. A lot of good people will violate other people. It happens all the time. And sometimes accidentally, sometimes you're in a bad mood, that sort of thing.
Was it not the connotation when you heard that story?
I did feel that way.
The word violation actually means not respecting personal space.
Well, and
which
it
is how I
also
felt.
means violation of privacy.
Correct. Violation means to abuse your privacy. a
Boundaries.
disrespect of boundaries. Period. Google it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not quite sure on the definition, but absolutely, it's for her to use the word violation and to feel confident in using that word. I 100% agree with that. At the same time, Sutton doesn't have to cry herself to sleep every night because she violated a friend's privacy. She can just apologize, say, you're right, I did violate. I'm terribly sorry. I'll really try not to do it again. That's okay. But I think what's happening is Sutton is getting defensive and other people are getting defensive on Sutton's behalf, saying that Sutton is not a violator. It's like, okay, yeah, she's a good person, but she made this mistake. By mistake, she did violate someone else.
Fail to respect someone's privacy or rights. I don't hear the word sexual at all.
I didn't do.
Right. But even if it was sexual by accident, because it was kind of, especially the joke that Sutton said, that is still acceptable. We can still look at Sutton and say, we like you as friends, the cast members, and we think you're a good person. Sutton can say, I like myself, I think I'm a good person, and yet I did violate that person, not only in just boundaries, but also sexually on accident. But I did violate. I should have waited. Sutton could just say that. It's not why can't people just admit that they did something wrong?
That, but okay.
I felt that way. That's all.
I did not feel violated at all when Kathy walked in on me while I was on the phone half naked.
Okay, totally fine, Sutton. You did not feel violated because for you, one, you're extremely closer to Kathy than I think Crystal is, because Crystal's brand new, I think, in this friend group. So one, the context of the relationship, plus you, Sutton, are just a different sort of a person. And from my understanding of this little scene, Kathy is walking in and Sutton is behind the wall right there. And maybe, Sutton, you don't have sexual trauma histories the way that Crystal does, or body shaming histories the way that Crystal does. So just because you don't feel that way doesn't mean that someone else can't feel that way.
I just wanted to check on you.
Seems to me like that's just kind of normal on a girl trip. So I don't know. Maybe Crystal doesn't have real girlfriends.
To me, violation of privacy has to be intentional. Her coming in not knowing that you're naked.
No. So because Sutton didn't intend on violating Crystal, which I believe, Crystal cannot feel violated? That doesn't make any sense. That'd be like saying, look, I was driving my car. I didn't mean to run over you, so I don't understand why you're in pain. I don't understand why you're on the ground with a broken leg. I didn't intend on breaking your leg, so why are you complaining? That doesn't make any sense.
It can't be a violation.
Oh, exactly. That's the truth. Sutton is a good Southern girl, and she's very thoughtful, very generous.
Again, fine. She's thoughtful and generous, and she violated Crystal. She violated her privacy, and I would argue she violated her body on a certain level. Because when you barge into someone's room, you don't know what you're going to see. I mean, just imagine yourself out there, that someone you barely know just randomly, periodically just barges into your room and you don't have a lock. Like, there's going to be a violation at some point that is going to be quite upsetting to you. I'm just going to take a guess. So, yeah, this is upsetting, actually, to watch what essentially is amounting to victim blaming, where this is actually interesting. This is a microcosm of what happens in society. And there's a very well-known phenomenon. The reason why people don't come forward when they have been victimized by various different crimes, physical, sexual, is because of stuff like this. Not only with your friends and your family, but also with the legal justice system, where there's this reaction, this bias that we tend to have. I don't know why we have it, honestly. It doesn't make a lot of sense that when a victim comes forward and says, hey, I was victimized, there's this tendency for us all, either culturally or knee-jerk reaction or cognitively, to be skeptical of that person and to shove them down and to say, oh, calm down, everything's fine. This happens all the time. It happens to kids when they come forward. It happens to many women when they come forward. You know, the Me Too movement was all about that. It's just like, enough's enough. Time's up. people. People have been coming forward for a long time, and we've been denied, we've been shoved down. And so this is actually an interesting microcosm because, for example, with Bill Cosby, and his victims, or with other famous people, for a long time, because people have an affinity to that famous person and think they know that person, which they do not, they will defend that person, and the press and the public will take victims, and they will shove them down. So in this moment, they all have an affinity for Sutton, and Crystal is the new person, and she's saying, hey, I was victimized by Sutton. I'm not saying Sutton needs to cry herself to sleep every night, but I was victimized. It was a violation. She shouldn't have entered the room. It's that simple. Why did she do that? She knocked, waited 1 second, and then opened the door. So, I don't think Sutton's a terrible person, but I was violated. And why is everyone calling me the bad guy? Why am I the bad person for saying that I was violated? I was the one violated. She shouldn't have opened the door. It's that simple. I was naked, and I have a thing about my body, and it didn't feel very good. Why am I so I'm wrong because I have feelings? A lot of people feel this way when they come forward, and this is, it's upsetting. I'm surprised because I would have thought someone would be on Crystal's side about this. I thought someone would say, yeah, Crystal, you were violated. But, Sutton's a good, they're just completely piling on Crystal. It's upsetting to watch.
She didn't really mean anything harmful. We all know how words can get twisted, and something that's small becomes much bigger and has now everyone involved.
Violation is a little strong.
The reason why it is bigger than it needed to be is because Sutton is not apologizing. That's the problem. Sutton is not saying, Crystal, you're right. I did violate you, and I was wrong. 100%. I should not have opened the door. I should have waited. I think I come from a culture where I just figured that everything would be okay. But looking back, yeah, I should have waited. I should not have opened the door. End of story. I think that would end it. The reason why it is protracted is because Sutton is not saying that. She's like, okay, fine, I should know, but I'm not a violator. I'm not a bad person. It's like, that's not the point. Yeah.
The hatchet so the group can move on.
For me, if you walked in my room, I would be like, woohoo!
But here's the deal. My reaction would be, oh my God, I'm sorry, close the door.
Right.
That did not happen.
Crystal, are you up?
It was walking in, and then you said, oh, I don't know what you're doing over there.
I don't know what's going on in here, but I'm gonna bring you your coat.
Right. Again, I don't think Sutton, well, I don't know. There is sort of a tinge of meanness in that because there's a lot of different ways to joke. There's a lot, because I was going to say, was Sutton just being joking? And I guess it was longer than a second. It was a few seconds. But at the very least, Crystal wasn't ready. But for Sutton, she's making a joke, and I'm thinking, well, she's just trying to make it a little lighter and trying not to make it super awkward. But there is kind of a meanness. I don't know what's going on in here. Like, why would you say that? You're walking into a room that someone believes they're in private. They happen to be naked, which happens for various reasons, right? And I don't know what's going on in here. Yeah, I mean, that is upsetting. It's not a terrible sin. It's not a terrible violation. No one is saying Sutton should go to prison or something, but it was a violation and it wasn't a nice thing to say. End of story. Apologize. I shouldn't have said that. I shouldn't have barged in. I'm sorry. I don't know why I did that. End of story. Why can't they admit it? And why is everyone piling on with Crystal?
You know what?
That was not a-
Here's
that was
the thing,
not a-
Crystal, and I need to defend myself for 2 seconds. I wanted to talk. I knocked. Your light was on. You were talking. I thought I heard you say, "Come in." I didn't say anything creepy.
I
It
don't
is
want to
so
talk about it anymore.
stupid.
But the
And
reality
see,
is what
but
it
see,
is.
now I'm getting angry.
Okay, if you said, Sutton, if you said that in a different tone, then we might be good. If you just said all of what you just said, I knocked on the door, I heard talking, I thought you said it was okay for me to enter, and so I entered the room. And then all Sutton would have to say is, and you're right, Crystal, you're right to feel violated, you're right to feel that I said something mean. I didn't mean it mean, but I could see how it came across that way. I don't understand why people can't, it's okay for, let's just all use this show as a jumping off point. We can intend on one thing, right? We can intend on something, and other people can receive it completely differently, right? I hope everyone understands that. Sutton, do you not understand that? That you can intend or think something or be, operating from a good place and have someone else can interpret it in a different way based on where they're coming from. Those two things can exist at the same time, right? There are two minds. And this is part of, you hear me talk about differentiation. And one of the elements of differentiation is that when you're differentiated, you have an ability to know that other people have minds different than your own. And you have the ability to hear them and say, okay, that's not the way I would have interpreted it. That's not how I intended it, but that is how they saw it. And that's okay. That's not confusing to me. I didn't intend on violating Crystal. If I were Crystal, I wouldn't have reacted that way. But I understand that Crystal is a completely different human being with a different set of experiences and a different mind and a different soul and just is different. She's different. I don't know what makes Crystal, and she's different. And to be able to differentiate is, to be mature is the ability to hold all of those things at the same time. I intended this, I would have reacted this way, and this is how they reacted. All those things are different. And fused people, undifferentiated people can't do that. It's really hard for them to do that. When other people react in ways that are unexpected to them, they get very confused. They're just like, they almost believe that the other person is lying. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Sutton believes that Crystal is lying, that Crystal is saying she's violated even though she isn't violated, just to pick on Sutton, because Sutton is fully within her own mind and she is projecting all these things into other people. And that is what's getting her upset, because of her undifferentiation, because she can't imagine that someone else has a different reaction than what she would have.
Stop blaming that.
Oh my God, who are you? I moved 2.5 weeks before I got to Tahoe, so I was very vulnerable, and I am sorry for that, and I've apologized for that, but I'm not gonna sit here and let you make it look like I was some weirdo. That's not what happened.
So maybe Crystal did that, and maybe that is something that could be apologized for from Crystal's side. I think there are maybe a couple minor things that Crystal could apologize for. But that wasn't what I was getting from Crystal. I wasn't getting that Crystal was saying that Sutton was a weirdo. I think that, well, maybe a little bit. But it is kind of weird, isn't it? You barely know someone. You knock on the door. You thought maybe she said to come in, so you just barged in. Yeah, it is kind of weird. It's not terribly weird, but it is kind of weird, particularly if you come from a place where that isn't normal.
And you know it. You need to tell these people, all of these girls, that nothing weird happened, and this is a dumb
I have been saying that.
So then we are all going to agree on it, because this is about my reputation.
Right. So it's not about Crystal's feelings. It's about my reputation. And this is often what is the fuel behind the undifferentiated anti-Me Too movement, which is, but I'm not that person. I don't want to be labeled with those labels. And it's like, no one was labeling you with those labels. You just did something that was wrong. No one is foisting a label on you. You can be a good person and without any labels and still violate someone's body, someone's privacy. That can happen on accident, you understand? So it's that anger of me. This is about my integrity. This is about my image. And by you saying that I did something wrong, particularly in that tone, I am going to squash that with my anger and my voice and my intimidation. And we've seen this, Harvey Weinstein, all the others.
Son,
It's about,
hold
no,
on.
no,
Let's
ma'am.
get real.
No, ma'am.
Let's get real
Not
here.
once you start coming after my personal reputation.
Then just own that you said that to me.
I didn't say it like, oh, I don't know what you're doing over there.
Wow. Now, I'm not comparing Sutton to Harvey Weinstein by any stretch. I'm saying this is a microcosm of what we've seen in the broader society. This is a 0.1% example of what we would see in more sensational news stories. But this is the sort of thing that happens all the time. And I wonder if Crystal, because she's the new person, that people aren't sticking up for her more. I'm just surprised that people aren't like, Sutton, you did something wrong. Just own it. Just say, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done it. You have yet to say that. That's all Crystal wants. And the more that Sutton, and Crystal just keeps on like, okay, like, I get it. You're upset. And she's holding the line, which I will, commend her for. And I think Crystal could do a little bit more, but she's definitely doing better than a lot of people on reality shows. And Sutton is just, escalating. And it's interesting to see. I've been suspecting from the beginning that Sutton has a lot of relational traumas that right at the surface. It's just a speculation I have.
Came in to do anything weird.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying.
And I've said that to everyone. Right?
No, the conversation was a little bit different. Crystal's story's changed. When she first told me the story, it really was like Sutton set out to hurt or harm or make Crystal feel uncomfortable.
Right, and if that's true, then Crystal can also apologize. I think it's a smaller apology that's necessary. But perhaps Crystal could own up to, yeah, maybe I was reading too much into it in the past. I'm not anymore. And I apologize to you, Sutton, for reading too much into it. But again, until Sutton apologizes and owns what happened, I don't think Crystal has to apologize for anything.
It's like, oh, what are you doing over there? And I'm like, so I told her, it was really creepy. And I felt like I had no boundaries. Like, when you fucking stand over there and say, oh, what are you doing? Fucking shaming me because I'm naked. It's creepy.
Now, Crystal's saying that she doesn't think Sutton had any bad intentions.
I will say, and I'm surprised that none of the women in this group can empathize with this idea, that body violation is a thing that happens in our society, particularly to women. So does no one, think that that's a factor here? That perhaps an ongoing culture and experiences of body violation might be at play here, and that Crystal was upset, and when she was telling her account of the story, she was still upset? Is no one aware of that possibility?
Everybody's under a lot of pressure.
Yes.
Okay.
Amen.
And you are away for the first time in 7-8 months from your children and your husband. You had a lot going on. I mean, I know the night before the trip, I called Kyle and I'm like, what have I gotten myself into? Like, as excited as I was to go, I was scared too.
So, okay, again, it's fine that you're trying to contextualize it, but this is essentially calling Crystal hysterical. This is a thing that goes back hundreds of years of like a woman is legitimately saying, I was violated. I'm not saying anyone needs to be thrown in jail, but that was a violation. She shouldn't have just barged in the room, and she shouldn't have said what she said. And everyone is not agreeing with her. They're trying to make excuses. And then now this person, I think that's Kathy, is saying, you were over emotional, essentially. You're away from your kids. I understand. You're hysterical. This is an internalized sexism, an internalized misogyny that might actually be at play right here. I don't know that, but it certainly feels misogynistic for a woman to say, I was violated, and then for a bunch of people to just not regard her experience and defend the violator is, again, it's not I don't think Crystal considers it a huge deal, but it is notable as a microcosm for society.
I mean, because I'm normal.
It's telephone.
It's a very dangerous game.
It is.
When it's about somebody's character.
Totally.
Words can get somebody really in trouble, and especially nowadays with the cancel culture and all that stuff, this is not the time to be throwing around strong words. I think Sutton has every right to be upset.
Am I missing something? I must be missing something. Comment below. Am I missing something? I don't understand why everyone is ganging up on Crystal. Can't people just say, yeah, Sutton did something wrong. She violated Crystal. She's not a violator. She's not a terrible person. She doesn't do that. It might have been literally the only time she's ever done anything like that. She's a good person. And no, we don't need rumors going around that saying that she, is a violator of people's bodies. But in that moment, accidentally, she did violate. She should have waited. I don't understand why those two things can't live in the same universe.
Big bow on.
Well,
It's okay.
I love it.
But it's going to take me a minute to get over being told that I violated someone. That's a really strong word.
Okay.
It's always going to be rattling around in my brain. So you've got to stop saying that I violated you, because I really
I'm not gonna back down on that word, sorry. There's nothing else to say about it. It's done.
Yeah, good for Crystal. Completely standing up alone. Crystal, I support you. I don't know if this is a good move for you on the show. I don't know if this is a good move for you in your friend group, but you absolutely have every right to say that was a violation. I was naked. She barged in the room. I didn't hear her knock. She didn't wait for me to confirm it was okay to enter the room. She shouldn't have entered the room. And then she didn't just enter the room and see me and close the door. She entered and then came in. Who does that? Just don't. So, or at the very least to be like, look, I get that Sutton didn't mean it, but for me, it felt violating. It felt like a violation. So good on Crystal for sticking up for that.
I straighten my bow tie for that, because no.
Next time.
All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle, in which I react to that show. Tune in next time when we continue watching and see what other things happen. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself, because you deserve it. You really, really do.